In today's world, we are increasingly dependent on technology. Our business and personal lives rely on it, but as you've probably noticed, it's unreliable. They promise it'll get better, but it usually gets worse. Our computers are slow, so we end up squinting at smartphones and tablets. We live in constant fear that something's going to happen to our personal data, so we're scared into paying for fake protection that proves useless when disaster strikes. Update attacks, fake Wi-Fi, cloud control, and other industry scandals are designed to keep the money flowing. The jokers we pay to fix our stuff have no clue what they're doing, so they do a virus scan and then wipe out our precious photos. Intelligent, successful people feel intimidated by the chaos and think it's somehow their fault. If they only knew what the industry was doing to them, they'd get torches and pitchforks. If only we had someone to explain it all in plain English so we can start protecting ourselves. Oh wait, we do! It's the Computer Exorcist Podcast with your host, Mark Anthony Arena.
From the Wallace Memorial microphone in my home office, overlooking the hills of Western New York, it's the Computer Exorcist Podcast. I am Mark Anthony Arena. I am your host. So glad that you are here today. Thanks for telling your friends about the show. Another special guest time. This is Bob McIntosh. He was on my show like 10 years ago on the old show. And I just wanted to bring him back. He's a buddy of mine. We used to do a lot of shenanigans in college together. And then we both grew up and became serious people. And I still can't believe it.
I was about to say, like, I don't know about, we both grew up and became serious people. I still do a lot of shenanigans, I feel like. Maybe not as many, but they're just more expensive shenanigans now.
Expensive shenanigans. Well, we keep it up because that's what keeps you young. Matter of fact, last night I was at a car show and this guy there has 3 Thunderbirds and from the 50s. He turned 101 last night.
Wow.
He mows his own lawn, drives his own cars. That's what keeps you going.
Dang, that's impressive, right? I mean, shoot, most people, like, by the time they're like 75 or 80 are like half functionable at best, but this dude's over here mowing his own lawn. That's incredible.
Yeah, unbelievable. I got an uncle who's going to be 99 next month. He drives his own minivan, has his own house.
Good for them.
Yeah,
I'll aspire to that. I got a little bit of time to go, but that'd be awesome.
So yeah, let's keep up the shenanigans, and next time you're in town, we'll do some prank, or we'll buy a car together for $100 and see how far it goes, or something. So tell us about you. You're an author. You're an inspirational speaker. And tell us.
Yeah, so I mean, I do a lot of things. Mostly focused in and around real estate and digital marketing, but have been fortunate enough to do a lot of things, right? So started our business my dad and I started investing in real estate in Buffalo about 15 years ago. Actually, a little more than that, I guess now, but and just did well with that and kind of spawned it into a bunch of things. And mostly right now I run a digital marketing agency helping business owners just get out online, be seen, do better, take advantage of this crazy thing we call the internet, because it's one of the most important places, especially post-COVID, to grow your business and do from there. And along that journey, I've been fortunate enough to spend, it's a little over 4,000 hours on stage now, teaching people about internet marketing, helping folks in that capacity and space. It's honestly my happy place. I'm that weird guy, if you're listening, going, wait, this guy likes to be on stage? Like, what? Like, yeah, I do. It's weird.
I do
but,
too.
It's fun, man. It's fun. Like, it's cool to watch people, like, especially with what I do, because a lot of folks that I talk to are, I'd say they're, on average over 55. And so they wouldn't consider themselves super tech savvy. But then to watch their kind of eyes light up as they realize what's possible, they're like, oh man, I just didn't even know that we could do that. And I was like, yeah, like this is only the beginning. Let's go. So it's been a lot of fun for that. And yeah, now I'm just traveling mostly in the States. I was down in Costa Rica and Mexico earlier this year, which has been fun, but been on the road for almost 18 months permanently.
Really, I can't wait to get to that point where I can just teach classes from my laptop and be in Virginia or Boston. That's so cool. And side note, you mentioned those online classes for people who are 55, or the classes about the internet. It's really important that you're doing things the right way, because about 15 years ago, I went to this event that they threw at a hotel, and it was a free lunch, yada yada, and they got up there and said, did you know the internet is kind of like an ATM? You just walk up to it and it gives you money, and we're going to teach you how. And then they wanted, $5 or $10,000 for you to set up an online store to sell your friends the garbage that this company was trying to push. It was extremely unoriginal. It was just, here, you give us $5 or $10,000, we'll give you a piece of garbage website, and then you sell your friends a bunch of things they don't need.
Sounds like most network marketing companies I come across.
Exactly. Wow. So that's cool that you're doing it the right way. And I'd love to talk to you, if you could help me advertise my new virtual town halls that I do online, something like that. It's, because I know nothing about advertising online, it's just not my subspecialty.
It's crazy how big the internet is and how many different specialties there can actually be within it. It's kind of mind blowing when you think about it.
Yeah. Oh, so many. Because people think, oh, he's a computer guy, right? You could just do everything. And a lot of dudes try to do that, right? They try to be a web developer and a local computer cleaner and whatever. But no, it's like dentistry and podiatry. It's totally separate.
Yeah.
I want to mention one of your books that it was called Get Out of Your Own Way. And I read it a bunch of years back, and it just helped me massively. And in my next book, that provisional title is Defeating Stress in a Crazy World, I'm going to talk about how I applied the concepts in that book. Just unbelievable concept. The idea that specifically the greatest idea that really stood out to me is you talked about how awesome is better than perfect, okay? So I equate it to people who want to crank it up to 11, right? People who are always doing above and beyond and knock it out of the park and blow it out of the water and crank it up to 11. We Italians are like that, and we type A's are like that, right? We want to blow away everyone's expectations and be perfectionists, right? That's cool. That's great. But in reality, what happens when you aim for 11 is you get nowhere. I like to say that you go to bed hungry, and if you're complaining and you don't like the bedtime snack that you have, then go to bed hungry and think about what you've done, right?
Right.
And, if you're dating and you're expecting absolute perfection at all times, you're going to go to bed hungry, right? You're not going to get what you're looking for. So what you taught me in that book was huge, is look for awesome. Look for 9, because 11 isn't possible, right? No one's a perfect 10. So instead of cranking it up to 11, just look for something that's more or less most of the time awesome.
Yeah. And you'll find that as you do that, right, a lot of people look at it and their mindset is, well, I'm settling for lesser. But perfection is really actually, it's unattainable in the sense of, think about you're, on a treadmill and there's a fishing rod behind you and in front of you is dangling perfection. And the faster you crank the speed up of the treadmill, you're never actually getting any closer to it, right? Because it's just dangling out of reach. And it's the same thing, because there'll always be the next thing, the next piece, the next, or whatever, or here it is. And so I love that. And actually, it's kind of funny you mentioned dating. I was just watching a video that a friend sent to me. It's like a clip from a podcast, and they asked these girls, what they want in a guy, and all of them said they want a guy who's over 6 foot tall and makes over $100,000 a year. And then he stops them, and he's, after they go through all this, and they said, that's your idea of perfection, if you will, in a date. And they pulled the numbers. They're like, here's the numbers on men who are over 5'10", not even 6 foot, and making over 80,000 a year, not even 100,000. And it's in the United States, it's 1.5% of the population. So it's like, hey, and it kind of goes back to the same thing, right? Like, we all have this mindset that we need this, but the reality is we don't often need that exact perfect thing. And to your point, in the book, I have a whole chapter about excellence over perfection. And excellence is a great way to look at things. Things can be excellent, but not perfect. And that's okay. And if we look for that in every aspect of our life, not just relationships, but also in our work and our business, in everything that we do, if we define excellence and what that means to us, that's a much more achievable thing. And this is not to say that we're settling for something less, but understand that perfection is a moving target you'll never achieve.
And settling, that's a huge thing, right? Because especially as a type A, I refuse to settle. I will never settle. I'll never give up. I'll never settle. Well, guess what? It's in reaction to what I see around me. Because around here, people all settle all over the place, right? They get with some slob, and then they have a couple random kids, and they don't even care about them, and blah, 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 right? That's settling. So you have to tell yourself that just because you're not going for 11 doesn't mean you have to go for a 2 or a 3. Does that make sense, folks?
Correct. Absolutely.
So it doesn't mean that, okay, if I don't find someone who's a supermodel and a genius, therefore I'm settling. No. If you settle for someone who's actually not at all what you're looking for and doesn't care about anything, yeah, that's settling. But look, there's a difference between a 9 and a 2, right? Just to put it simply. You don't have to settle for someone who's really, really awful. You just have to find someone who is excellent or awesome.
Absolutely.
And in the future, I'd love to have you on to talk about this when I get my book out. And I love the concept. And it's the same thing with my industry, right? What do you see all the time? The pursuit of perfection, and we want more, and we want more, and we want more. And the last couple episodes I talked about Amazon, how they still consider themselves a startup. And that's really cool, to be innovative and dynamic as opposed to cumbersome big organization. But eventually, if you are that unsettled, right? If you have no self-control, as I put it, right? These programmers, that's the real fundamental problem with this industry, is these programmers are insecure people with no self-control. So they keep adding more and more and more and more and more dumb features that nobody wants, and the result is garbage, unreliable technology.
Generally would agree. Yep. That's because it's about having that list that says, here's all the things, right? I've done all the things, here they all are. And it's like, okay, well, all the things don't matter if things don't work.
Yeah, I like that, right? It's like you're so in a hurry to assemble a building that you just slap it together, right? But you don't have any foundation, so it falls apart after a week. Yeah, so those folks need to remember that having a solid product, that's awesome, even if it only has it like my brother printer over here, right? It just does copies, printing, and scanning. It does nothing else. It doesn't have cloud web print, which never works anyway, right? It does what it's supposed to most of the time, and it's invincible and blah, blah, blah. And once they realize, hopefully, I pray someday they realize that that's all people want is something that works.
I think we're starting to see that. I think it's starting to sink in that usability trumps functionality.
Oh, we're gonna put that as the title of the episode. Functionality, got it. Do you want to talk a little bit about, do you want to promote your website or whatever before we get into articles? What are you working on? What do you want to promote?
Yeah. So, look, the biggest thing that I can help you with, if you're listening to this episode, first and foremost, thank you for your time, right? Like, obviously you chose to choose this podcast, and I appreciate you dropping in. Your time is your most valuable asset to give. So I don't take that lightly. Likewise. Thank you. If I can help you, if you got a business and you want to know how to get yourself online, just go check it out. Go to go3dc.com. You can kind of see all of our stuff, and that's GO, the number 3, and then DC for like Delta Charlie. Our company's called 3 Degree Consulting, and we'll be happy to just have a chat and say, here's what we can do for you. I think that's the best place I can start. We're not really a stamp it out, roll it out in a factory type style business. We kind of look at our solutions more as customized. So you come to us, you say, here's what I need, and then we kind of say, okay, here's how we can help you get there.
Brilliant. I'm looking through it right now. So it's go, the number 3, DC.com. This is really cool. I gotta figure out what, did you use WordPress to make this? This is cool.
Yep, WordPress. Yeah, we have our own developers on staff that build all our sites. I used to do them myself, but we've grown now, so I can outsource that. Thankfully, well, not outsource it, but we just have people. When I say outsource, not necessarily outsource outside, but outsource from me doing it.
Sure, and that's another huge thing is that your time is so valuable, and one of the concepts that you taught me, as well as the book that you recommended I read, the E-Myth. is, your time is valuable. Just focus on what you're good at and don't spend time learning other professions. You know how many years I spent, like when I started my business doing in-home tech support, I thought I needed certifications, and I was taking this Ubuntu certification, which is all about how to be a high-end server manager analyst. And it's just focus on what you're good at. Yeah. So that's a cool website. Yeah, really good. Go3dc.com. Okay, you ready for an article?
Let's do it.
Okay. December 2018, Roundel Magazine. This article is by Rob Siegel. The fungibility of cars and parts. Fungible means interchangeable with something of the same kind. And by the way, that whole NFT, non-fungible token, now we know what that word means, okay? So
right.
Fungible means...
No, I had to look it up when it first came out. I was like, wait, what the heck is fungible? Like, I've heard the word, but I was like, okay, let me Google that. Oh, okay, that makes sense now.
And that's cool how something like that comes out, and they're using some ancient word that used to be obscure. And now they're, so fungible was some obscure word back in 2018. And so it means interchangeable with something of the same kind, right? So money is fungible. If someone owes you $100, it doesn't matter if they pay you back with the same set of Jacksons. Does that make sense? It doesn't matter what dollar bill they use to pay you back. You just want that same amount of dollar bills. Gold, pork bellies, oil, or gasoline are examples of fungible goods, right? So I guess, and that's why they would say non-fungible for those other things. Like non-fungible would be a piece of artwork, right? There's only one of it. You and I are non-fungible for darn sure, especially Bob and Mark. Non-fungible, okay? To many people, cars are also fungible, interchangeable, indistinguishable. People simply turn them in at the end of the lease and get another one. But as car people, we of course are different. We form intense attachments to brands, models, and specific VINs. I recently bought back Bertha, the 1975 BMW 2002. It was in terrible shape, but there's only one car that my wife Marianne and I drove off from our wedding in, and it's that one. There's no fungibility, right? It's that particular car. Fungibility extends to a component level. If you have an ultra-low mileage 65 Corvette with a couple miles, 80 miles on it, much of its value is in the originality of every component, even the normal wear and tear parts, hoses, clamps, brake pads, everything except perhaps the oil. And side note, a lot of times you have a collector car, even if you don't have exactly the part that came with the car, the original piece, you could swap it in for a period correct piece, so at least it's just that old, right? It came from the same factory around the same year. In resurrecting Bertha, wherever possible, I put a premium on keeping the car as I built it in the 80s. I didn't want the correct shift knob. I wanted the wooden one I'd installed in the car back then, and I was thrilled when it rolled out from under the seat. I also relate another remarkable story about the engine in my friend Erica's car. The engine came from a parts car that my friend Wink had obtained from an elderly gentleman. He told me the car had been his son's baby. His son was killed in the first Iraq War, and his wife learned how to drive a stick so she could drive this car. It made her feel connected to their son. She drove it back and forth to work every day until it collapsed onto its rear axles. She literally ran it into the ground. When she died, the elderly gentleman wanted to find a good home for what was way more than just a car. He said I could have it so it wouldn't just get crushed. I think about things like this, Bertha's steering wheel and Erica's engine, and how all that nuance, all that history is erased when your car is sold. Even if you tell the new buyer, it's just never going to have the same import. They may just be cars and parts, and some folks may regard them as fungible, but I feel moved that Bertha and I get to help a piece of a car, formerly owned by a soldier and BMW enthusiast I never met, to drive around the world. And I can attest to this, because I have my grandfather's car, and I always tell people, like, it's a really, really cool car, but I tell people, like, even if it was a K car, or a Pinto, right? Old cars that were notoriously bad, no matter what it is, it's still my grandpa's car. I don't care what it is.
Little piece of my history you might actually not know. My dad owned, his first business was an antique auto parts shop, sold parts for Fords from the 1909s to the 1970s.
Did not know that. I just picked this article because it was nice and sentimental.
Yeah, so a lot of my, I'll say, childhood growing up and all of that was around people with that same sentimentality, in the sense of, hey, this is my car, I want to restore it, we're rebuilding it. Like, we had an old Model A that him and his dad had rebuilt from the ground up with, and of course, you talk about a car from 1920, right? You're going to have to replace some things, or just things aren't going to, it's not going to be 100% original. Just almost impossible for something to have survived, 100 years almost at that point. And so I saw firsthand sort of that sentimentality around cars. Now, for me personally, it never mattered to me, right? Like I even today, I could care less about cars. Like, I know, especially in the world of entrepreneurs that I roll in, everyone seems to have this, oh, I want a Lambo, or I want this, or they have like, or, they want that old Chevy. Or there's actually a guy down the street from my parents' new place here. He's got an old Chevy in his garage, and an old Thunderbird actually in his garage as well. And I see him out there tinkering and working on it all the time. And it's I look at it that way. Now, it's funny, I think when we look at a lot of those things, everyone has the thing that they don't think is fungible, that is non-fungible to them, in a way, to use the article's terminology. Like for me, this is weird, but I still have like my old computers that I built. I mean, I don't use them anymore, and the likelihood of me ever like actually using them is so low, just because they're so old now. But I remember still from like RIT, for example, like I bought my first 120 gig hard drive, which was like insane at that point in time.
Oh, that was huge. Back then we had 8 gig drives, where most people were using.
Right. I know. I was like, oh my gosh, it's so big. Like I can't even know I don't even know what I'm going to put on this thing that's so big. But and it's funny. I still have that hard drive, right? It's still in the box. And so I think a lot of us, we all assign some of this ideals to things, and it's interesting and kind of cool to know the history behind something, even if you never intend to use it for the same history, or doesn't carry the same weight with you. It's still nice to know that. It's almost like when you sit with your grandparents and you hear their old stories. It's kind of the same idea to me.
Absolutely. It's just something irreplaceable. I've had to do that with my own stuff, right? I'm going through all my grandparents' possessions now. I have it right here in my home office, and I have to deal with this and figure out. So I told myself, look, I can't keep all of this forever, because it'll impede my own life, right? I want to be like you and just fly around with a laptop and fly around the world. But I ended up, what I decided to do is, sure, I'm going to keep a couple things, but I'm going to give it to relatives or anyone who will need or appreciate this stuff. And so that's how I learned how to deal with it, right? And that's another thing, is like channeling that, right? Because a lot of people out there are hoarders, when really, hey, look, we can channel that energy. The only reason a lot of people are hoarders is because they see something, they don't want it to go to waste. Okay, fine. So tell you what, make it your mission to help it from not going to waste by giving it to someone who needs it. That's all.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of ways to not waste something, and go there. Now, but of course, too, like, you gotta understand that the sentimentality behind that thing will never carry. And like, I think he kind of encapsulates that well in this article, which is, it's never going to carry forward, right? You can know the story, but the story will never carry as much weight for the next person as it did for you, and that's okay. I think I look at things, I mean, maybe I go on the extreme side, but I have very, very little things, right? Like, I still have a small storage unit with some of the, important things that are important to me in it. Like, I got a bunch of, books that are signed by my favorite authors and things of that nature. But outside of that, like, stuff is stuff. And I'd say just keep the things that are important to you for as long as it makes sense to you, and then enjoy the story behind it, right? And, but don't let it become burdensome. The moment that it becomes burdensome to you, that's when I think the sentimentality and the non-fungibility of said item becomes irrelevant, right? Because the goal is to enjoy life. And if you're constantly, also something else I think about a lot is, if you're constantly living in the past, you're not leaving a room for the future to create new things for you to experience as well, right? We all only have so much capacity in our minds to store stories and absorb information into new things and create new sentimental connections. And if you're constantly letting those old things take up that space, you're always, there's an opportunity cost of losing something in the future that might be even more valuable to you. You just don't know.
That's really brilliant. That's it. I mean, sure, it's a lot better to give it to someone who's going to appreciate it versus throwing it away. But yeah, that's it. So even if the story doesn't have as much weight with them, okay, that's fine. It's still helping you to move on. You know, my ancestors wouldn't want me to just live in some pile of their old stuff and not move on with my life. You kidding me? My grandma would yell at me if she knew I would do that, right?
Right.
So that's a really great point. And you know, as I've been getting rid of all this stuff and giving it to people, it's especially this year. I mean, as you know, I've spent the past 10 years just being in this quicksand, just buried by the extreme number of phone calls and blah, blah, blah. And now this year, I'm finally, for the first time in so long, finally looking forward to the future, looking forward to a day when things I do are creative, right? And when things I do are constructive, instead of just staving off phone calls for the same repetitive jobs that I've done, right?
Right.
So I like how you say that. Look to the future, look to creating something new, because if you're living in the past, you can't do that. That's pretty cool. Do you want to do one more article?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
All right, here's a quick one here. January 2021. This came from James Park, CEO of FitBit. I'm writing to you today to let you know FitBit is now officially a part of Google. It's an exciting moment for us as a company and Fitbit community around the globe. Since 2009, having sold more than 120 million devices, our mission has never wavered. We're a movement to transform lives. Together, we've taken 275 trillion steps and logged 15 billion hours of sleep. That's creepy that they're adding up. I mean, I get it, that's not personal data, but they're still adding up how many steps that everyone took in total. 275 trillion steps. Hey, I give them 5,000 steps a day. This is just the beginning, because becoming part of the Google family means we can do even more to inspire and motivate you on your journey to better health. We can innovate faster. Actually, that's very scary, because you know what happens when Google innovates. They do things against you. Provide more choices, which actually means lock you into things, and make even better products on the bounds of what was possible with the wrist. Your step, your heart rate, your sleep, your stress, with access to Google's incredible resources. Give me a second here. Yeah, it's really.
This was clearly written by a PR person.
Yeah, kind of. And you know, side note, before I finish the article, my buddy's wife gave me a Fitbit around 2020, and it certainly inspired me to go for a walk every day, and I got my health back, and I lost my weight and blah blah blah, and it was awesome. But I could have done that with a pedometer from Big Lots, right? One of those disconnected knockoff ones that wasn't controlled by the cloud. You don't need anything besides a pedometer that says, Mark, you walked this number of steps. I see no need for it anyway. Anything else is just extra, and it's just a way for them to dangle all this. It's something they dangle in front of you in order to suck all of your health information, and eventually, I predict, use it against you. You know, your electronic medical records, right? So here's something interesting. This acquisition will create opportunities. Fitbit will stay committed to doing what's right, putting your health and wellness at the center, and offering a no one size fits all approach. I like that customizable approach, like you do. The trust of our users will continue to be paramount. Data privacy and security protections, giving you control of your data. Google will continue to protect Fitbit's users' privacy, made binding commitments with global regulators, confirming that Fitbit users' health and wellness data won't be used for Google. Well, continue to allow Fitbit users to choose to connect to third-party devices and to connect your favorite health and wellness apps. And Google is an ideal partner for Fitbit. Look, Google's an ideal partner because they wrote him a big check. And I get it that this guy's probably jumping up and down because he got billions of dollars in a check. But if you remember an article I read a couple years back at some point in the show where Google gobbled up a pre-existing health data company, and now they control, since everything in this industry is a monopoly, they now control the monopoly on health data. I forget the name of the company that they gobbled, but Google now knows all of your health data, and it violated a bunch of all sorts of different agreements because hospitals didn't even know that it was Google that knew all your stuff, and it's all a way for them to squish all this data together. And not to mention the fact that these Fitbit devices are all controlled by the factory and controlled by your account forever. So 12 minutes from now, when they deem that product unworthy of existence, they will kill it remotely and you won't be allowed to use it anymore. Final thoughts, Bob McIntosh?
Well, I would say a bunch of things. I'll start with this. You were mentioning about having a pedometer and it being sufficient, right? And I don't disagree. I think that's absolutely true if that's all that matters to you. But I think there's something that's more important than the technology, and that's what does it take to get you to be a healthy person? I think, and you know, say what you will about this, I think anything that motivates someone to be healthier for themselves, regardless of what or who or how data is controlled or used or not available or available, I think that's paramount to everything, right? I would rather see someone give up all of their health data and get themselves healthy than not.
It's a huge point, because I mean, I definitely got my health back because of it.
Yeah. You know, now all things being equal, you know, would I want that to be the case? No, absolutely not. Sure. Like, I think data privacy is definitely an important topic. And if you're ever listening to this and you want to dive into something and learn some crazy stuff about Google, like, I feel like I know a lot. Probably you do too, Mark, just because we're in the space and we understand it. But there was a phenomenal episode on the Joe Rogan podcast, regardless of how you feel about Joe, you like or dislike, whatever. The episode is with Dr. Robert Epstein. And he talks about just the depth of information and the things that Google has been able to do. And it's fascinating. Like, even to the point of stuff that I was like, man, I didn't even know that they could do that. Like there's a part where he talks about how he can't prove it, but the data indicates that they shut down the internet completely, just as a test to see if they could.
Whoa, would not doubt it.
Yeah. So, you know, do they have a lot of information? Sure. You know, now, again, this is always the fine line. And actually, this is a perfect story about this. So our data and our privacy always comes at the expense of convenience, right? Mm-hmm. It's more convenient to have a Fitbit that tells me my steps and shows me my trends and shows me all the things that and allows me to see into the past. Your Big Lots pedometer is not going to do that for you, right? It's not going to give you, like, unless you go out of your way to track everything every day, put it in a spreadsheet, create the graphs, and do all that. So what's more convenient? Is it more convenient to do that and have data control, or is it more convenient to just have it spit it out for you, but know that the data is being accessed by somebody else?
Right. It's always about dangling the convenience in front of you, and most people want that because they're overworked.
Like, I think about, I just came back. I was in Mexico, Costa Rica, and Canada this year. And all 3 times I came back to the States through customs, and they have an app that you download on your phone now if you want. You don't have to, but it's called the Mobile Passport Control.
So far, you don't have to.
Right? Yeah, 100%. You don't have to, right? But if you do, you go to a separate line, and every single time that line has been less than 1/10 the number of people in line. And so even though, like, when you download it, it says, hey, we could access all of this information. And I'm like, oh God, I'm like, but do I want to stand here in line for an hour and a half to get through customs? Or do I want to go over there, give them the app and just do the thing, and I'll be in and out? And all 3 times I've been in and out of customs in less than 20 minutes. And you're like, oh, it's that convenience. And it's like the worst thing is it's people like, I'll say like me, who are like, I'm fully aware of what this means, and yet I'm still choosing to do it anyways because, like, you know, I get,
at
like,
least you're aware.
This is always
at least you made an informed decision.
Correct. And I think that's where it comes to. And I look at it from this point of view, right? Like, I can spend an hour and a half in line, and I'm essentially wasting that hour and a half because I can't do anything I can be on my phone maybe or whatever, but I'm not going to be productive in that hour and a half. Whereas if I get through security, I get through customs, and I get to my next gate, I can pop my laptop over and I can, tackle some work, and I can build the thing that's important to me. And so that's how I justify it. Now, is that a good justification? Depends on who you are. But and there's always the as you just said, the awareness factor, right? Like, I'm aware what that means. I also, unlike many, have a better idea of, if I don't want that to be the case anymore, how do I stop it? Now, obviously, I can't prevent them from having what they've already got. Sure. But there's always that. And, I think when we look at technology as a whole, that's how they will ultimately get us, is what's convenient. And if I can attach lack of privacy to convenience, you will accept it. Most people will, maybe not everyone, especially on your show here, but most will accept it simply because they crave convenience more than privacy. And, I don't know if there's a right answer there. I think this is, I think 50 years from now, the next generation, the youngest generation right now, are going to look back and go, man, one of two things. Either A, I can't believe they thought this. This is so great, and here's why. Because some sort of revolution of some capacity happened that made it so that this is actually amazing for us. Because the ability for all this stuff is amazing, right? The scary part is who's in control of that ability, at least right now. Or they'll look back and go, man, those guys were idiots. I can't believe they didn't see that coming. So, right. And I don't think we won't know that until we get there. There's so much that could change. But I think, and one last thought on this, and then I'll be quiet. And when we look at what's happened from the rise of technology when you and I were kids to today, and let's take Gen Z as an example, even the youngest portion of Gen Z right now. We went from absolute privacy, if you will, right? There was about the least private thing might have been your phone number, which was in a phone book. Other than that, no one knew anything about your life unless you told them. There was no way to know anything. Mm-hmm. And I think our generation, to a certain extent, overcorrected to that, because we went to we can share everything about everything that we do with everybody. This is awesome. I can finally connect with people that in a way I've never been able to before. Mm-hmm. Right. And now I think we've swung back the other way. The pendulum has come back to everyone going, whoa, maybe that's not the best thing. Right. Let's swing back. And I look at things, for example, Foursquare, the app, is the perfect indicator of this, right? I can remember not that long ago when you would check in every single place you went. Every place you went. You remember that?
Buddy, he would go to, I'd always say, oh yeah, so-and-so is at beer tasting event again or whatever. And he was always checking into places. Right. And I'm sure it was fun, but I'm glad it fizzled out.
Right. But it changed. And then all of a sudden the pendulum swung the other way. Is do I really need to tell everyone where I am all the time? And then of course, people took advantage of that. Oh, look, you checked into Mexico, so I know you're not home, so I can go rob your house now. And, people will find a way to do these things. But I think the pendulum has swung back the other direction to more forms of privacy. And I think what we'll see is over the next 50 years, as that generation that saw the results of our complete openness, and not that it was wrong of us to do that, because I don't think that's right. I think we simply made decisions based on where we came from. It was just a very different time. We're that weird generation that had very little technology to all of a sudden, today having infinite technology. And so, there was no other way it could have gone. But I think it'll be interesting to see what that generation does with that, and having a deeper understanding of technology, a deeper understanding of privacy, and a craving for that will be interesting to see kind of how that changes. And I think companies like Google are going to find it progressively harder to utilize our information in that way, because those generations will. But what they'll do, because Apple's doing this, and I hate it personally, even though I have all the Apple stuff now, for better or for worse, is, we're all about privacy. No. You're all about privacy, perceived privacy, right?
Yeah, that's a good way.
You're just keeping all your information for yourself. You're not sharing it out there like Google does, but but you're still collecting all of it nonetheless. So.
Last episode I said Amazon, there's knockoff garbage all over the place on Amazon, right? If you go on Amazon, everything's a knockoff, or many things are a knockoff, right? But Amazon attacks their own sellers and accuses them of being knockoff products only when it's in their best interest to do so. And you're absolutely right. It's the same thing with Apple, where, oh yeah, privacy. Oh, we want your privacy. Only when it's some politicized hot topic that they can toot their own horn. But normally Apple hates its people, and they do brutal things to you.
That's right. No. They're the only difference between Google and Apple right now is that Apple puts a better spin on it because the uninitiated or unaware just don't know any better to ask the right question. But I think, when you look at it, the end result, right? It's the same. Apple's using all your data. Sure. This is where it's like genius. I mean, as a marketing person, genius. As a tech guy, what the F? But like the button on Apple, on iPhones now that says, ask app not to track you, or whatever it says, or whatever.
Okay, and so you feel
it
good.
It creates the perception of privacy,
right?
Because it's like, oh, look, I'm telling the app they can't track me. I'm not saying my phone, iOS, Apple can't track me. I'm saying this third-party app on my device. So you're still allowing Apple to track you. You're still allowing the data to be shared. It's just not sharing through somebody else. So now Apple can control the data, and then what do they do with it? They'll sell access to it to other people eventually, because they understand that the long-term value of them is in the data. This is why Facebook and them are in this huge fight, because Facebook controlled the data for a long time, and now they've realized that actually the device controls the data, not the app. If we control the device, we control the data.
That's right. In a recent episode, I talked about Apple versus Facebook and how they were battling with each other, and I equated it to Godzilla versus Mothra. And, that old 70s, it's two beasts that are both evil monsters fighting against each other, and I just sat back and ate popcorn and watched. You brought up so many huge topics, so many huge things. Where do I even begin? Yeah, and this is what bothers me, is that when you and I were in high school and college, right, your device was yours, okay? Maybe Microsoft provided the software so that you could get your work done, but your device belonged to you. Nowadays, the device works against you. It's something you think you own, but it's actually meant to control you, and it's remote controlled, and it's meant to surveil you. And that's why I'm a huge proponent of Mint. I recommend Mint computers as opposed to Windows or Mac, because it's yours forever. No one does any spying. And there's an internet meme where it has all the brands as different cartoons, and it says, "Oh, you're spying," and Mint says, "Wait a minute, you guys are spying," and everyone else is. But it's so. I refuse to use a device that spies on me. Even when I'm on a Windows machine, I turn off the telemetry, turn off all the spying. And you're absolutely right about the usability and the convenience of it, right? And you know what I don't like is, we went to school with a lot of jerks, a lot of engineers, and they would, well, what's the matter with you? You need this technology to move forward. What do you got, something to hide? That you don't want the app about passports, right? And they're so black and white. And what you and I think, you and I are free thinkers and realize, hey, maybe we can figure out a way to move forward where you can have some convenience without all the extreme data privacy breaches and the extreme imposition on your privacy. Does that make sense?
It does. And I think, there's an opening right now for someone who has the audacity to do it, and probably the money, and mostly just to buy security for themselves, I would say. But there's an opportunity right now to create a space in which you are not. You were saying, look, we offer all the convenience, none of the surveillance, none of the spying, none of that stuff. But the catch with it has to be, and this is where whatever that might be will lose, and this is why what's winning is winning, is that it has to be convenient. Most people don't like technology. They don't want to deal with it, right? And look, I totally get the engineer's point of view, right? Like, this is great. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, all the things that we have now, it's amazing what we can do, and it's so cool to see that this is happening. It's also scary if you understand how it can be used, right? But if there was someone out there saying, "Look, we're going to do all these things, but we're not going to use it this way," which always requires a level of trust, it's great. The problem with that is that it's very difficult to achieve that effectively, and invariably, governments will step in and say, well, we want this ability because, safety over, the safety and security of this over privacy is more important. But, I think, again, I think the coming generation is going to learn to develop ways to manage that and balance it. And it might simply be as much as just, hey, be aware, right? Understand, what is happening with your data and how. And I think that's a great starting point, if nothing else, right? It's just to say, hey, yeah, we have your data. Yes, we're using it. Here's how we're using it. If you don't want us to, do this thing, or and I think that's fine. And that's another thing, actually, that's funny. I liked in the Fitbit article that you read, if you read it carefully, right, essentially what they're saying without saying it is, we're going to use all your data for all the things that we're going to anyways. You'll have control over your data, but what they don't say is, but by default, we'll use it however the heck we want unless you tell us otherwise.
And at least there's a way to opt out. And that's how I've made my money in recent years, is exposing this stuff and then teaching people how to opt out of this stuff. And absolutely. And the
but
other,
of course, they won't give you that ahead of time, right? They'll give that to you option after they've collected your data and transferred it all over. And then you can say, okay, at this point, I don't want it going forward. That's another thing they don't tell you either. It's like, hey, what about all my existing data? Can I prevent my existing data from being shared? And the answer is probably not.
Well, because
by the time this is announced, they already have it.
Right, and in the Google history scandal, one of the things I do for people, I discovered, I don't know how, but I stumbled upon this years ago, that if you have a Gmail account, Google records every last website you ever go to. So I flip the switch, tell them not to do that anymore, and then I show the client, hey, look, here's a list of everything you've done so far, and I turn away and I let them read it and get shocked, and then I flush all of that history, delete all of it. But yeah, it's that's what I do on this show, is I explain alternatives, right? I inform people of what's going on. I explain alternatives. And you know what, Bob? In the case of email, right? If you don't want people spying, you can pony up $7 a month. It's not a big deal to find an alternative email provider that doesn't spy. So yeah, you're right. It's got to be convenient. And yeah, hey, guess what, folks? You might have to pony up $7 a month. So that's your other thing. But that's what I'd love to do with my future, is once I get out there and get my show out there and all that, is I'd love to highlight alternative products, like you're saying, where it's all of the convenience and none of the spying. And I certainly hope I can do that. And I'm just starting to be able to do that now. So thank you so much, Bob. I'm just thrilled. And y'all don't know the half of it. This is the tip of the iceberg of Bob McIntosh. Y'all don't know how brilliant this guy is. So we should definitely have him back someday. Go number3dc.com to hire him for marketing. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being on. And for all of you listening, appreciate your time, as I said before.
Shine.